Good morning, Navigation Church. Can I just ask you a really honest question? It's 80 degrees, going to be 80 degrees outside today. And I don't know about you, but my grass is trying to break world records as far as growth pattern right now. And there's probably a car that needs to be washed or washed, depending on where you come from. How many are sitting in here with your to-do list of what you need to get to as soon as we're done with church? Okay. So we're not done with church yet. So let's get dialed in here today. It was the most interesting thing. I came downstairs. My wife's at home with some sick kids, and she, along with a lot of other people, are probably watching via our stream. So we just welcome you, either on our app or on our website. We're glad that you're joining in this morning. And I came downstairs to tell her a story, and as I started the story, she picked up her phone, and I go, hey, I need 100% attention, or else you'll be 0% effective. Right here. So then my wife corrected me for correcting her, but that's a side note we'll cover in our family series. But here, in Daring Faith, I need to make one adjustment to what Aaron just announced, that this is our final sermon. Because here's what I've been praying about all morning. Is this our final sermon on Daring Faith, or is this our starting point for a faith-filled year? And I actually think this is our starting point, not an ending point. We're not doing these campaigns just so you get more head knowledge. Actually, I think God equips us for the days that are coming ahead. And when it comes to faith, here's the thing. Waiting is a part of faith, and I can tell you I'm a prime candidate to tell you about this story, because at the beginning of our Daring Faith campaign, I stood up here. We have video proof of it. You can go back and watch it on the app. You can watch it on our YouTube. Probably even find it on our website, where I said this. At the end of this campaign, I'm going to be standing up here with a piece of paper. These are my notes, so don't get too excited right now. I'm going to stand up here with what? A contract, a piece of paper, saying the land that we're going to, the contract for the sale of the building, something. And so guess what? I don't have any paperwork yet. And I have to report back to you in a week or two. So I know what it feels like to wait on God, but I'm going to tell you about my process in a little bit. The first thing I want to tell you is that during this faith period, we've been cleaning up misconceptions, because they're all over the place. Even my 8-year-old son. So this morning, I don't know how you worship or what you worship to. I can worship to just about anything. So this morning, one song that I had on was Hallelujah. Pretty much any version anybody does. I know I always ask the band, can we do Hallelujah? And their comment is, you know the song from Shrek? No, not the song from Shrek. But then there was another one I had on because YouTube automatically went to it. Don't be mad at me, but it was Lady Gaga, Million Reasons. Because the chorus is about, give me a million reasons, I drop down on my knees and pray, and guess what? I can worship to it. So my son comes up and goes, oh, you're not listening to Christian music. And I said to Judah, honor thy father and the mother. No, I didn't say. I go, what do you mean it's not Christian music? He goes, well, you know, good music is hymns or songs about Jesus. I go, no, that's true. I go, actually, son, there's 3 types of music. There's secular, there's sacred, and there's satanic. And the 2 of them we're okay listening to. And he goes, there's those 3. He goes, oh, I thought there was Christian, non-Christian, and country. I'm not making this up. I'm not. He separated country music out, and here's the thing. I didn't disagree with him. I think that falls under that satanic category. That completely. So who likes country music? Wow, louder amens there than during worship. Right after service, we have prayer teams over here. No, we know how to do deliverance. We will free you. Honest God, the only good country song was done by Justin Timberlake, so a pop artist had to tell country singers how to do it right. Careful? Any Justin Timberlake? Okay, thank you. 3. I'm going to go back to having country fans on my side because there's not enough Timberlake people in here. But here's the thing. There's just misconceptions sometimes when it comes to the word and what we believe and how we do things. And so with faith, we need to clarify some of these things. Because when it comes to having daring faith, in America right now, the culture that we live in, it says that waiting is not an attribute you want to have. But yet in kingdom culture, waiting's a good thing. And you go, well, what do you mean by that? When's the last time you went through McDonald's, Hardee's, Burger King, White Castle, any of the good places, and you had to wait to get your food longer than 2.5 minutes? Weren't you annoyed? When's the last time you tried to stream something online and all of a sudden it started buffering and you went, what in the world's going on? Because we are in a culture where waiting is not a good thing. Actually, waiting is a 4-letter word. Wait is a 4-letter word that we shouldn't be saying. And as a company, the faster we can get products to you, and I'm just pointing out, Amazon's figuring out how to have drones deliver your package in 2 hours or less. Because no one even want to wait for something they buy anymore. But yet one of the greatest tools God uses is the tool of wait. Why? Because when he uses waiting in our life, most of the times if we would wait on something, it would keep us out of some of life's greatest pains. And if you don't believe it, think about this. Is it easier to get into something or to get out of something? Is it easier to get into debt or out of debt? Right, it's easier to get in. Why? Because I saw a car, I saw a house, I saw a TV, I saw a new video game that I just had to buy now, and I couldn't wait. Wait for what? Wait for my character to save up a little money so I could pay for it with cash. So I'm going to buy it on debt with credit, and I'm going to end up paying 18%, and by the time I get it paid off, I probably could have bought 2 video games if I would have developed the character of waiting. How many have ever got into a bad relationship easier than getting out of a bad relationship? Why? Because you probably didn't wait. I don't know why he doesn't love me. I know why he doesn't love you. You gave it up on the second date. You didn't have him wait on anything. Am I allowed to say it that blunt? Because I just did. If I offended you, I'll give it another run. Here it is. You didn't wait for anything. You manipulated her to give it up on the second date, and you wonder why she doesn't honor you as a man. Because it's easier to get into bad situations than it is to get into good situations. To get in good situations, sometimes waiting is the primary tool that God uses to develop character. But we think delay is denial, but we should view it as delay is developing character. So now all of a sudden we're in this place where our character is being developed, and you will, God, but I prayed about it. I have a question. Has anyone ever met, and by the way, if you're an only child, I in no means have anybody in mind when I say this, but have you ever met an only child that got anything he or she wanted at any time that he or she wanted it? What's the word we use? Spoiled. I had brat, annoying. There's a few of them. I'm going to self-edit right now. But here's the thing, if any time a kid wants anything and parents get it, if you're the parent with kids outside of that, don't you look at them and go, man, that is not healthy for that kid? What if we went to God and every time he prayed, he gave us anything we wanted every time we prayed for it? Wouldn't you almost say that God's a bad father? And wouldn't that make us spoiled brat as far as spiritual children? And what's the chances, and let's quote a good old country song here since a lot of you like it, you redneck hillbillies. So, yeah. How many times have you heard that song, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers? How many prayed for this relationship to take place, but after you got in the relationship, all you did was pray that this relationship would end? But you have God standing on the outside saying, I never wanted you to have that in the first place, but you didn't wait on me to bring the spouse that I wanted to bring your way. But God, this was the greatest deal ever. No, you didn't even price shop it. You're standing there. It's not the greatest deal ever. It's the greatest deal in front of you. But I need to use the tool of waiting. But here's the crazy thing. When God doesn't answer our prayer as fast as we want him to answer it, we ask God why. I have a question. Does anyone know any Christian anywhere that every time they pray, they get everything they want every time? By a show of hands, my God, stand up. I need you to pray for a building. I mean, do you know of anybody that every time they pray, they get anything they want, carte blanche? But yeah, we get mad at God because he doesn't give us anything we want every time we pray for it. And guess what? That's how God works. We got to stop blaming God for a characteristic he never said he wanted to have. Right? Instead, we need to develop and say this, God, when you're doing something inside of my life, I will wait, because when I wait, something gets developed. And I love this. And the top of your notes, and by the way, you have a lot of fill in the blanks. Good luck us getting to all of them today. But luckily, there's page 154 in your book. Why do I point that out? Has all the answers. So whatever we don't cover, but the plan is to cover it, but I'm feeling inspirational today. So I want to read to you Romans chapter 8, verses 24 through 28. If you have your Bible, I'm actually going to read out of the Message version because of the storytelling way that it tells it. I love it. It says this: this is why waiting does not diminish us. Did you hear that, Christians? In your faith, in your desires, in the obstacles that you want to overcome, the opportunities that you need to step towards, and the openings to share the gospel with someone that you love, I need to tell you this: waiting doesn't diminish you any more than waiting diminishes a pregnant woman. Actually, if you don't wait the right amount of time, something's lost. In that, I've never, I got to be careful how I say this because I'm sure I'll get in trouble regardless. I know what it's like to have babies because my wife's had 4 of them, and I've walked that road every time, and I've had kidney stones. Now, pretty much anything I say beyond this point, I'm in trouble. So I get that. But it'll be worth it, okay? It's for the joke. No, here's the thing. I never went to my wife on month number 5 and went, why are you so lazy? Like, why aren't you just having this baby? Like, honey, can't you kind of pick up the pace here? Kind of get task-oriented? Get this baby out of you? Wouldn't you look at me kind of like you are now? Wouldn't you look at me and go, that's not how it works? But yet, I prayed to God, and He didn't bring it to me in a drone, in a box, now. Maybe because you're barely pregnant with it. And if He gives it to you now, I'll say it this way, you'd almost abort it. It'd be premature. And so waiting doesn't diminish us any more than waiting diminishes a pregnant mother. We are enlarged in the waiting. See, right now, if I made a comment about do pregnant women get enlarged during the waiting, I'd get in trouble. So I'm smart enough not to make that comment. Things start swelling. It's just painful for them, and we love you for it. We, of course, don't see what is enlarging in us. But the longer we wait, the longer we become, and the more joyful our expectancy. How many times do we know a mom that's just 2 weeks away and everyone's asking, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you expecting? Are you expecting? And most of them answer the same way, get this thing out of me. But yet at the same time, they're ready for it to be out of them. Why? Because in the moment we get tired of waiting, God's Spirit is right alongside of us, helping us. If we know how or what to pray, it doesn't matter. He does our praying in us and for us, making prayer out of our worldless sight and aching groans. He knows far better than we know for ourselves, knows our pregnant conditions, and keeps us present before God. That's why we can be so sure that every detail in our life of love for God is worked into something good. It's working something good. And you know what the amazing thing, again, I've had 4 babies, so I don't want to call myself an expert, but I'm basically a doula in training at this point. But in these 4 different pregnancies, I found out a couple things that happens. Number 1, the baby inside develops. The mom on the outside expands and develops. But something else happens. Of our 4 babies, there was never a time when we brought them home and we said, what do we do with it now? We should probably make a bed. No. The bed was made already. The room was painted, the diapers were bought, the bottles were ready. Why? Because somehow when it's being developed inside of us, the world around us starts changing. What would happen if you got pregnant today and you had a baby tomorrow? We would all freak out. You ain't ready for it. But God, when He wants something new being birthed on the earth, He says this, I need you to go through a waiting period so that by the time the waiting period is over, guess what? You are ready to steward the thing that I'm going to give to you. And you can't do it if we just give it to you because your character won't be built and won't be ready for it. So guess what? I'm going to pull out the greatest tool in my toolbox. Wait. But God, I need to find you in this place. Oh, you will, because you got nothing else to do. You're waiting. And I love it. So what do we do in the moment that we're trying to find God and we're waiting for the thing that we want? I love this. Mark chapter 11, verse 24 says this, and listen to the tenses as we read this. Jesus said, I tell you, whatever you have asked for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. So here's the interesting thing about the tense of the words, the verbs here. It says this, in the moment you're standing, in the present moment that you're standing, act like you're already in the future, so that when you get to the future, you will have it. So don't, in the present tense, look to your past with regret. He's not saying that. Don't look to your past and find reasons to blame God, doubt God, question God. He's saying in this present moment, look to the future, and in that future sense, say, that's how I would be living then if it was now, but since it's not now, I'm going to act like it's then, but by the time it gets then, I will now know how to act. Did you guys follow that? That was fantastic. Clap your hands. I nailed that one. So say amen. That's an old joke. I apologize for pulling that one out of the bag. But I remember a gentleman one time that was looking for a job, and I happened to be on a trip with him. Every morning he got up, he showered, he shaved, and he put on a suit. I go, what do you do? And he goes, when I get my job, this would be my morning routine. And he was already doing his morning routine. He was living as if he had it already, which is exactly what Mark right there is saying it. So you're single. Let me ask you this. You're single, you hit on every girl, you talk to every girl. Unless you're a guy or a girl, then you're talking to every guy. You're flirting, you're giving out numbers, you're going on dates, you're acting, let's just say, a little loose in your character. I have a question. If you want a husband or a wife, why don't you start acting like you have a husband and a wife and being faithful to one? And then all of a sudden when you become a husband or a wife and things start going rough, rather than being in every breakup because of every relationship and you're just practicing divorce, now you're in a one-time relationship and you haven't been practicing divorce by breaking up with anyone you didn't get along with. Now you're standing in the relationship that you're supposed to be living in. Why? Because when I didn't have it, I acted like I did, and now that I have it, I know how to behave. So what do we do when we're waiting on our faith? Act like you're living in it already. Is that good? Does that make sense? So you say, here's another example for you, because they're just coming right now. Here it is. So you don't have a lot of money. I have a question. When's the last time you picked up a Wall Street Journal? When's the last time you studied what that ticker tape going across the bottom of the TV even means? I want to have millions. Well, God can't give it to you. You don't know what to do with it. I mean, I love you, but you got to hear the truth. Right now, if God gave me $1 billion, I would have to invest. I'd have to find some really smart people to tell me, what do I do with all this? Because if you say, well, I just put it in the bank account and live off of it. Yeah, if I was God, I'd go, you're a perfect candidate. That's who I should give it to. Someone who would use it for themselves and don't know how to reinvest it or invest into my kingdom. God, I need to get physically fit as you're microwaving your next meal. There are so many health programs out there. What are you reading to change your mind? What are you doing to become the person you want to be? Because right now, you're only going to be who you are now if you're not doing something different for who you want to become. You start living where you want to be in the moment that you are, so that when the future hits you, you're ready for that opportunity. Okay, I'm done. I'll go on. If you got your notes, here's what we're going to do. Your next 6 blanks, fill them in quickly, because I'm running through them with you. If you have a bulletin, we filled these out for you already. Because in your process of daring faith, you will be in one of 6 categories. Here's the 6 phases. The dream phase, the decision phase, the delay phase, the difficult phase, the dead end phase, and the deliverance phase. You'll be in one of 6 areas when it comes to your daring faith walk. And where does Pastor Rick Warren pull these from? He's actually looking at the life of Abraham, Genesis 12, 1 through 2. God came to Abram and he said this, Abram, I need you to leave your current land that you're in. I'm going to give you a great family. Now you go, well, where was he living? Actually, he was really rich, living healthy in a place, but he had no kids. This is a big deal back then. Number one, all you had was your heritage. Your children took care of you. That was your retirement plan. Not government, not Social Security, not an insurance. It was your children. And your children, if you didn't have to pass on to, it just kind of got lost, and your name would be lost on the earth. So Abram had this dream of, no, I want a family. So now all of a sudden he's in a dream phase, and he had to make the decision, I'm leaving. And it says this in Genesis 12:4. It says, Abraham left and went where God told him to. And you got to love this. By the way, when you step out of your dream, you made a decision to go, God basically said, head that direction. He didn't, no GPS coordinates, no final map. You couldn't print out something for him online. It was just head out in that direction. So the dream inside of him, the pregnancy that he was currently under, was so big that he was willing to step out in faith in order to follow the call that God had in his life. So he made the decision to begin moving. But then all of a sudden there was a delay. God said to him, you will be a great nation. Sarah, are you pregnant yet? Sarah, are you pregnant yet? Sarah, are you pregnant yet? And you can't really have a great nation if you don't have a baby, because the baby's kind of the nation God was talking about. So now there's a delay, and I love the way that Pastor Rick says this, Pastor Rick Warren. He says, could you imagine Abram going to the local restaurant, local deli, and they say, oh, what's your name? I'm Abraham. Oh, father of a great nation. How many kids do you have? None. Like his name said one thing, but where he was living was something different. I have a question. Is there anyone in there who feels like this right now? You have faith out there. You have a dream out there. You have an expectancy out there. But yet when you look at the life around you, you go, but I'm not living in it yet. You may be in the delay or the difficult stage. Here's the difficult stage. Abraham was 100. Sarah was 90. I know I've said this before, but it's a great joke. She was past menopause into ministop. At 90 years old, the chance of her having a baby, none. Can everyone say none? Zero. So now they're in a difficult stage. If you want to do additional study, in the difficult stage is normally the time where we try to take matters in our own hand. Because actually what they did is they said, hey, take my maidservant and have a baby with her. At least you'll have a son that way. And God went, no, I still am using the tool of wait. I never said no. I said wait. But guess what? In the waiting period, Abraham was able to put his complete faith and trust in the word that God has given him. How do I know that? Because now he was in a dead-end situation. In Genesis chapter 22, verse 2, it says this, Abraham at this point, take your son up to the mountain and sacrifice him to me as a burnt offering. Now, if you're here and you don't know a lot about Jesus and God and church, you just heard me say this. God told a man to take his son, sacrifice him, burn him on an altar so that God would be happy. I don't really have enough time to go into detail here. But now, the good news, there was a deliverance that came next. Because when Abraham showed that he was willing to give up the only thing that he loved, the only thing that guaranteed this promise of God. When Abraham proved that I'm willing to give my one and only son, God stopped him and said, listen, I don't need you to do it. I just need to know you are willing to do it. So there's a lot more to this story. When I say there's a lot more to this story, next week is the culmination of this story. What do I mean next week? How many have ever heard of Easter Sunday? Easter Sunday is a time when God the Father gave his one and only son for us to be crucified for our sins. And God said this, if I'm going to make a covenant with man, I need you to know you are as serious as I am. So man had to show that we were willing, but God was never going to let a son be sacrificed like that. God was going to be willing to be sacrificed for us. So if all you hear today is that God they serve wants to sacrifice children, nope, not at all. That's completely out of context. Here's what it is. It's God saying, I will if you were willing. And so in this deliverance, though, now you have Abraham look over to the side, and in a bush, in a thicket, you had a ram, which I love this. Think about if you're on top of a mountain, you've taken time to build an altar, all these stones, you collected all this wood, you laid it there. Somehow your son's laying on this altar. And if I made a movie, I wouldn't know how to do it. Is the son laying there by himself, crying? Or did dad have to tie him up and tie him down to keep him? Like, as a dad, how can you see through the tears rolling through your eyes, and all of a sudden, God sees that he was willing to sacrifice his son. Oh, there's a ram over there caught in the thicket. I'm thinking that ram, how do you get there? And if you were a dad looking for a way out, wouldn't you have seen that a long time ago? However God comes through with your deliverance, sometimes we shouldn't question it, we just should accept it. And in Abraham's life, there came a deliverance. So my question for you is, where are you in your process right now? Do you have a dream that you're kind of waiting for? Were you willing to step out and move into a decision in a direction? Have you been delayed? Is there difficulties? Are you in the middle of a dead end where everywhere you look in your life is a difficult situation? But ultimately, is there some places in your life where you see deliverance on hand? So what do we do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover the next couple spots for you, the next couple blanks, because I know they're empty, blank in your outline. The final 3 deliverances we're not going to cover, so I need you, if you have your book, to once again go to page 154. What do you do when you're waiting? So let's make this real personal right now. What does David Amston do when I know that I've heard from God that we're going to be leaving this property, going somewhere else, but yet when I look around, there is no sale on this property or other property under contract? What do I do in that waiting period? What do I do in the waiting period of my personal life when I know there's things in my heart that I want to create, but even though I want to create them, the tools that I need around me aren't here yet? But here's the crazy thing. I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. And I would say this. First of all, remember what God can do. Remember what God can do. So Abraham, he's 100 years old. Do you think he thought, I'm going to have a baby with my 90-year-old wife, and the way to do that is through positive thinking? Staying positive is a great thing, but positive thinking isn't going to change the womb of a 90-year-old. Thus says everybody. Right? Did he base where he currently was living on his feelings? Because I'm thinking he could have gone back to where he was in a land that he currently had occupied with all the riches that he needed. And now I'm in a new place. I've had a fight with my brother. There's been a separation. There was a big fight and a war. And now I'm in the middle of literally no man's land. And I don't have the promise that God has given us. I should base my next move off my feelings. I'm going to give you just a little insight. Feelings may be one of the worst indicators that you should make major life decisions over. Now, they can be a catalyst for change, but they shouldn't be the purpose behind change. Logical, rational decisions, surrounding yourself with a multitude of counsel so that you can get wisdom. This is what. Did he believe in self anymore? Once again, 90-year-old wife. Abraham, you can do it. At 100 years old, where was he in his life at this time? What he did, and this is Romans chapter 4, verse 17, and I don't think these are in the bulletin notes, but I know they're in your book. Romans 4, chapter 17, it says this: Abraham believed in God who gave life to the dead and who creates something out of nothing. Is there one place in your life where you can look back and say, God did it once? If you can find that one place where God did it once, if you can find a friend who says, God did this for me in my life, if you can look around, and maybe it is a Bible passage because you believe in the Bible enough, but a lot of people I know, they don't believe in the Bible, so you can't quote the Bible to them, but you can say this to them: there was a time when I was so addicted, blank. There was a time when I was so helpless, blank. There was a time when I gave a couple dollars to the church, and immediately I saw God give it back. And by the way, I use that testimony because that was told to me this week. Gave $300 to buy bicycles for the Easter egg outreach. And the moment they left from giving that money, 2 contracts came in to their company. Is there one place where I can grab a hold of that promise in order to believe? And if it is, I would say this: know what God can do. And by the way, it's anything and everything. But in this place of character development inside of you, you may just ask the question, God, where am I not ready? Where is my pregnancy not right? Where is my breech baby need to turn? Where is it that I haven't developed a nursery to bring this birth into? What do I need to change in the world around me? Because God, if you did it once, you can do it again. Second thing, rely on those promises. If you're stuck somewhere in life, you ready for this? The Bible has 7,000 promises in it. Well, I don't know where the one that I need is. There's a thing, it's crazy. It's kind of new. They're called search engines on your computer. You may have a phone. The common one is Google. Have you heard of this? If you have a hat, just hold it. Okay, here you go. You can type in there and go, Bible verse, struggling with shame. And this search engine, it's crazy. It goes through and searches the Bible and will give you a list of scriptures. And of those scriptures, you can read them and then go, that's the promise I'm going to hold on to. I'm struggling in my business. I'm struggling in my family. I'm struggling. You do a search, and all of a sudden you take a promise, and guess what? God wrote it for you to own it. It isn't a promise to Apostle Paul, who's dead and gone. It's a promise to us. It's a promise here, promise to the now. 7,000 promises in the Bible. The next thing I want to say, recognize the facts in faith. I can't say it any better than it's written in the book. Faith is not ignoring reality or pretending a problem doesn't exist. That's foolishness. If you have a bad back, you have a bad back. Saying you don't have a bad back doesn't make the pain go away. Denial. Actually, how can you be delayed if you deny it? Because God's saying, don't deny it. I can't heal it if you don't have it. And so now, faith is facing a hopeless situation without being discouraged by it. And I know for me, looking at... Okay. I'm bored with my sermon. The next one is in anticipation, and I'll cover that in a minute. Because I need to tell you a little bit about my story, and it's specifically about this building. Okay, so here's what happened. Before Daring Faith came along, we're trying to figure out what do we do with 9 acres and 100,000 plus square foot of buildings. Did you hear that number? We could quadruple in size as a church, and we don't need 100,000 square feet, especially 4 stories up with no elevator. Like, there's just room we didn't need. And so it was, how do we sell this? But somewhere along the process, it went from how do we sell this to how do we get rid of this? I mean it. So before Daring Faith came along, and by the way, I got to face the facts that parts of this building are 100 plus years old. Here's the other fact. It was made for a school. Not a whole lot of them buying 100,000 square feet. And here's why. Because if you're too small of a school, you can't afford it. If you're too big of a school, you want to build your own. So we're right in this limbo land of all this square footage that we have, and what do we do with it? Right before Daring Faith started, we got 2 bids on the property, 2 offers. The first offer was for $300,000. The last appraisal was $1.4 million, if anyone cares. So $300,000. Within a couple days, we got another offer of $330,000. And we literally said this: do we just start selling off pieces at a time just to try to get rid of it? And very open and honest conversations, praying about it, asking about it, because I said this: God, are we just trapped here? Is this what we have? How do we deal with this? How do we process this? What do we do with it? But then everyone was like, hey, we're going to do this Daring Faith, and we're going to trust God. And I'm like, okay, let's do that. I guess I can put the building out there for it. But here's what it was. It was in doubtful faith. Because all the evidence coming my way said this: the property doesn't have the value you think it does. And I went into Daring Faith thinking this: how do we get rid of this? Can I just be honest with you on this? If you're losing faith on this, I already told you I listened to Lady Gaga this morning. I mean, like, you even decided you're coming back or not. And it followed with, oh my gosh, I went to sing. That's when they'll storm the stage. So now I go into Daring Faith, and it's like, God, what are we going to do? And then week 1, day 1 of Daring Faith, no phone rang. Day 2, no phone rang. Day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 8, no phone ring. Now, I will say this: some phones have rang, and we as a church need to be vigilant in our prayers right now. But currently, I'm not standing here with any piece of paper, but the most amazing thing that's happened during David's pregnancy, because God came to me and he said, listen, you doubt despite the fact that strangers that I don't even know looked at me and said, who are you? Well, I'm David. What do you do for a living? I'm a pastor. You better be ready. God's about to give you property. That's how blunt a stranger said it to me. I then started looking back through some notes that we have 2 years ago. I'm in Denton, Texas with Pastor Brent. A guy named Sam Brassfield comes to us and he goes, listen, I see God moving you. He's moving you to the highways and the byways, and he starts just prophesying. And I hope you don't get freaked out by that word, but basically a guy came to me and said, I feel like God's trying to say something to you and you aren't hearing it, so I'm going to let it come out my voice. God's wanting to move you. On a January 1st, while standing in church, my phone, I get a text message, and it's a pastor out of Portland that said this: I feel like God is about to relieve you from the stress of this property. I'm going into Daring Faith going, we're just here. We're going to enjoy the smell. Walls are cracking. There's black outside. Oh, one more gutter. Whatever kids are showing up late at night just to beat on our downspouts, could you stop it? I don't know why this is fun for you. I will buy a downspout you can take to your house. Okay, and yes, our windows break. I don't know, for those watching, our windows break. Throw a rock. It'll happen every time. God. And now all of a sudden, God said, apparently, you're not ready for a new birth because you doubt if you're even pregnant yet. Although I've given you 3 tests that have come positive every single time, but you're not even stewarding the seed that I have inside of you. Because guess what? I was looking at a set of facts, but they weren't in faith. They were in fear. Big difference. I'm looking at the facts of a big building. I'm looking at the fact there's no buyer. I'm looking at everything the world would tell you to look at, and guess what? All of those metrics look really, really bad. But the problem was God kept saying, ready for this, ready, this is mind-blowing. 2 years ago, God started saying this, I need to relocate you. I'm going to prepare to relocate you. By the way, not only am I going to relocate you, I'm going to put you to an intersection which 2 different people at 2 different times who don't even know each other use the word intersection. And now all of a sudden, I'm going through Daring Faith, and I begin pulling out these words, and I go, okay, I have to stretch my faith. I have to go in places I haven't gone before. What am I going to do? And oddly enough, the craziest thing happened. Nothing around me has changed. I don't have a contract signed. I really don't. We have no offer or no property that we were given or bought somewhere else. But something about David's womb is different. Here's what it is. I don't sit here asking the question, can God do this? Will God do this? And here's where I'm at now, and I'm saying this just as honest as I can say it to you. How is he going to do it? I really am to the place of how is he going to do this? The other day we had a situation. I was so butterflied in belly, freaking out, nervous. I called the other pastors and I just said, I need to tell you what's going on, and I'm freaking out, and this is a good thing, and I'm so worried. And they just kept throwing out, do we have faith in God or not? You have faith in God or not? Don't tell me you don't respond better than that. Right? Didn't I? I tried to actually swap or merge the calls. What is that? Hashtag weird. So I did. I tried to merge the call and hung up on one and tried to call and had to call them both back. And I'm just going, what am I doing? What am I doing? And they're going, hey, either God's in this or he's not. And the moment they said that, I went, yeah, either he is or he isn't. And if he isn't, I probably shouldn't be here anyway. But if he is, why am I stressed? Actually, I should be rejoicing in the anticipation. So rather than freaking out, will or could or can, I'm here celebrating, going, how are you going to do it, God? Because if you did it once, you're going to do it again. 30 plus years ago, my dad had a ragtag group of people that literally barely had a checking account, only could get loan from one person, and they decided to buy a property that everybody else was delinquent. It's just the house we're standing in today. And I'm going, if he did it once, he can do it again. I can't tell. By the way, in just the group of churches, is it all right if I'm done with the notes? Because at some point, we're either going to be inspired for action or we're just going to fill out some blanks and all go home. So we got a friend in the network of churches that we're a part of. He was just given through the Baptist organization a 15,000 square foot church in perfect condition, absolutely free. Why? Because the church couldn't afford it anymore. They handed him the keys. Well, God, if you did that last month, you can surely do it again. And of course, we all know, don't call him Shirley. So it was there. If he did it once, he can do it again. And so I'm now standing here. The highest form of faith, the highest form of worship that I can give to God is praising him before he ever provides for me. The highest form, the most authentic worship, because now all of a sudden, God, I'm praising you for this. God, I'm praising you. God, I'm praising you for this. And now all of a sudden, my womb is ready. My world is ready. My expansion of faith is ready. Guess what? I'm a pregnant woman. And now I just got to give birth. But when I give birth to this thing, the one thing I'm going to realize, it was never mine to begin with. I had nothing to do with the two things coming together to create birth. I had nothing to do with the gestation period. I had nothing to do with forming the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth. I had nothing to do with that. The Bible says that God knits us in our mother's womb. God's handiwork is the one moving inside of us. God's handiwork is moving inside of our vision. God's handiwork is the one developing the future that we're supposed to walk into. So when we walk into it, in no way, shape, or form can we go, man, Brent Johnson is awesome. Aaron Simonic made this happen. David Amson is the reason for it. No, we'd all have to sit around and go, only God. Only God. And that happens. Humility happens. Trust happens. Character happens in one place, the waiting season. Is there anybody here today that you would say this? In my waiting season, I've responded on the phone call like you have. And don't tell me that thing. Can I just, is there anybody else that would say, that's me? Okay, I'm up here by myself right now. I need to see some paws and hands in air. You ready for this? How many would say, okay, that's been me? How many in your waiting season could use some grace from God? Can we do that? Can we just pray for God's grace to be upon your waiting season? And wherever you're at, the dream, the decision, the delay, the difficult, the dead end, or you're ready for your deliverance. Maybe you're ready for circumstantial deliverances, personal deliverance, or just an ultimate deliverance. Whatever that looks like, wherever you're at in that phase, can we just do this? I'm going to have you do this step of faith with me. I'm going to ask you to stand to your feet. And I'm going to ask you to take a physical posture for an internal purpose. Ready for this? Trust me, you're going to position yourself. I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands. And here's why. In this external posture, if I came up to you with a gun right now and said, freeze, what would you do? I'm surrendering. So we're going to take an exterior posture to say this to God today. God, I surrender. I surrender my will. And Lord, every place that you failed me, I now see it that you failed my timeline, but you refuse to fail my character development. So now I allow the development of my character through your ultimate tool of waiting. God, right now as we all stand here with our hands raised in a spirit and really an attitude of worship, I ask for anyone in here right now that needs your grace to be poured out. May your grace come upon them today. Every place where discouragement, God, I start at step number 1. For those of you that refuse to dream, don't think you can dream, and have kept your mouth shut about your dream, I release grace upon your dreams right now. For those of you who can't mentally come up with the reason or the way and how you're going to move out into your dream and the direction that you're going to have, I release the decision-making ability to just do. To just do. I pray that your dream grows so big in you, the baby inside of you starts kicking so hard that you can't help but make the decision to go. And for those of you that are in this wandering, delayed, dead-end area, I pray for God to expand you as a person, to expand your character, to expand your faith, to expand your perspective on what He's wanting to do for you and the world around you. And for those of you that are in a place where deliverance is ready, for you to step into your new day assignment, God, grace them to move. And I would say anything that is holding them back, help remove it. Any place that they've allowed life circumstances to hold them, God, we ask you to shift it. And we release grace on their lives right now. If you agree with that, say amen.